You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 23 of the Battered MLS Fans Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Ganada, and alongside me, I got Mr. Edgar Zuniga covering the LA Galaxy, and we're going to be joined by Bob with the Red Bulls in a little bit. But before Bob joins us, what's going on, Edgar? How you doing, sir?
Man, I am a mix of like excitement and nervousness. It feels like I drank too many Red Bulls or something, and I'm just like kind of
Was
jittery.
that was that on purpose? Was that
Yes.
was that okay?
Yeah,
Man,
it's just
I am very jealous because I thought that Inter Miami would be there in the final, but all good. It would have been fun, but I think we got the two biggest markets, so I'm sure MLS isn't necessarily completely down on it. Um, Before we get into the Galaxy, and there was a bigger story, obviously, Riqui Puig. I
sorry, my
wanted to
dog's
ask you.
crying.
No, all good. I don't know if you've been seeing on the Twitterverse. A lot of people are saying that they hate the playoff system. I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts on the playoff system because a lot of people are saying the fact that the 16th seeded team, right, the 16th best team in the Supporters Shield, is representing the East, and in the final of the MLS Cup, they say that doesn't really it's not a good representation for the league. I personally disagree, but before I tell you why, I kind of want to hear what you have to say and what your thoughts are.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Like I'm an MLS lifer. You can see I'm wearing the OG kit from '96, and it's it reminds me of the early days of MLS when they had that strange win 2 out of 3 series back in the early days, and it was like MLS was trying to walk that fine line between playing the world's game and also trying to make it palatable to an American audience. So they're trying to yeah, here's the world's game, but look, a playoff system, which is something that you guys are used to, right? And so it was kind of interesting because in some of those playoff series, in the first 2 games, one team would definitely beat the other in aggregate, but it didn't matter because you had to win all 3 games. I mean, you had to win 2 out of 3. Sorry, my dog's upset because
It's all
she probably
good.
saw an LAFC fan walking by or something. So, but yeah, that's what it was. But as time went by, you knew that there was going to be a natural evolution, a progression into a something that was much more accepted worldwide, something like in the Champions League, right, where you have a home and away aggregate in a playoff system, and it seemed like MLS was going there, but then money talks, right, and
Always.
more games. Equals more money, more butts and seats, more merchandise, and so it seems like we've gone back to that. It's kind of strange to me. Now, as far as having a low seed come up and get to the championship game, it's America, baby, right? What did Don King to say? Only in America, right? I mean, it
Yo,
could
Don King.
conceivably happen, right, in a world stage, like a silly example. Like we've seen San Marino win 2 matches over the past month, right, which they went like forever. They had never won a
Without winning
competitive
a game.
match. Yeah, and they won 2, and then they had a draw in another one, and they qualified. They got promoted from League D to League C and the Euros, right? I mean, in the Nations League. And all of a sudden, I heard that there is a way that San Marino could conceivably qualify for the World Cup now, being a group winner. They would get put into a pot and they would end up playing some team. And all they had to do was win a series of home and away, and boom, they're in the World Cup. And I'm like, San Marino, what? Right? Well, what a story would that make?
That
So
would.
if that's in the world stage, and then here in the United States, you have a team that's coming up that just gets hot at the right time and does what they need to do to beat the bigger teams. You know what? At that point, it's on the big teams, man. Take care of your business. Beat the smaller teams. You got there for a reason. Don't tell me you're gonna run out of gas at the last minute. Finish your job. Like Kobe used to say, job's not done. Get it done. And get all the way to the final. And New York has done what they did to make things uncomfortable for Columbus. They did it again to New York City, to the Pigeons, and they did it to Orlando. And I'm sure they're going to make it really uncomfortable for the LA Galaxy on Saturday as well.
I'm with you. I like the playoff system. Thomas Soy said that the fact that only the U.S. does it should tell you something. What it tells me is that in the
Mexico does
U.S.
it too.
They started the playoff system.
Yeah, Liga MX
Well,
still has a playoff system.
but the apertura, right? The two
Apertura and
different
clausura,
champions. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but yes, it is somewhat similar to the playoff system. But what Thomas was saying is that only the U.S. does it. What that tells me is that the U.S. worries about keeping the fans interested, because if it wasn't that way, the Red Bulls fans would have checked out. Back in June, July, they would have been
Oh yeah.
checked out. But because they keep everybody interested, you kept everybody watching. And in a country like this one, where you have other options, you have 4 other major sports that are very popular, you need to keep everybody interested. Otherwise, they'd go off. And then in August, the NFL started. October, the NBA, the NHL. During the summer, the baseball's going on. So you need to keep people interested. So yes, the U.S. does it because, well, one, there's other sports that we care about, and two, we want to keep everybody interested. Now, in other countries, right now, if you look, Liverpool is like 9 points clear of the second place team. They're almost, unless they completely fall apart, they're going to be the favorites and will probably win the title. And whoever's in 16th, just stop watching. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, but now they're going to play really hard so that they don't get relegated. Well, congratulations. You get to play really hard so that you don't get relegated, but you have absolutely no chance of winning a championship. Where I think that I like the way we do it here. We give everybody an opportunity. Now, I will give you that there are some people that say it should be less teams. I agree. Maybe 9 teams in each conference making it, maybe that is a bit much. But I do like the playoff system. Maybe cut it down to 6 in each conference and 12 teams total. That's fine. But I like that if you lose Forsberg for a month or two, that doesn't completely take away your chances of winning a championship, like it didn't. Because when he was out, they suffered, and when he came back, you could see the difference. So I just wanted to get into that spiel because it's been going around the Twitter's verse, and I just wanted to get your take on it.
No, absolutely. But can I say something about
Of
what you just
course,
said
go
about
for
the
it.
playoff system? That goes completely kind of against what you said about Open Cup, where a small team from somewhere out in the middle of nowhere has an opportunity to beat a professional club in the top tier in the United States, right? And I know you don't like the Open Cup, but that's
No,
kind of the same.
uh, technically, but I like that we're
Yeah.
playing professional with professional. When you have a minor league team playing against a major league team, that's when I don't like it. I like if you tell me that I don't know who the worst team in Mexico is, but if they come out here and they just randomly go crazy and they beat everybody in League's Cup and win the title, hey, that's a cool story. I like it. But don't tell me that you're gonna get and I love making this example. Don't tell me that you're gonna get the Jumbo Shrimps to play against the Yankees, and I'm gonna be excited. I'm not gonna be excited about it, even if the
Savannah
Jumbo
Bananas,
Shrimps win.
baby.
They sold out here in Miami, and selling out a
See?
baseball stadium in Miami is crazy. But that's basically the whole playoff talk. So let's get into the MLS Cup. Quick story, personal story before I get into it. The final is on December 7th. That is my wedding anniversary. I had already gotten permission
Ah.
from my wife to spend our wedding anniversary at Chase Stadium if Inter Miami made it. So double. I'm even more frustrated the fact that I got the okay to spend my wedding anniversary at the stadium and we didn't make it. But whatever. I'll leave Inter Miami talk aside after that. All right. So going into this week, obviously, I think the biggest story was Riqui Puig. Riqui Puig got injured around the 60th minute is what we heard. He played the last 30 minutes with that torn ACL and had the game-winning assist with it regardless. He is, I think, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, I think over the last couple of weeks, because Edgar has joined me for about a month now, because this run's gone so long, Riqui Puig is the engine for this offense, and he is now officially out probably for the next 8 to 10 months. How are you guys taking the news that Riqui Puig is going to be available this week?
Yeah, it's been rough because you go from the high of qualifying for MLS Cup, but defeating a very respected rival in Seattle Sounders, but a game that, my God, that game was tense. We expected a tense match. Some people say, "Oh, Galaxy's gonna blow them out." It's like, nope, that's not gonna be a blowout. That's gonna be a lot different. These are two old teams that know each other very well. Two coaches that have a history, and so it was going to be hard. Now, as just real quick about the Riqui Puig injury, a lot of people have aimed a lot of vitriol towards Christian Roldan because of he tackled Ricky at one
But
point in the
do
game.
we know that that's the injury though?
Well, that's the thing, a lot, on social media and maybe even in the mainstream media, you'll hear that, oh, Ricky took a bad step like in the 61st, 63rd minute. This was before before the tackle from Rickson Rodan. But those of us that were at the stadium, we actually saw Rodan like go hard into Ricky earlier, just few, like maybe 4 or 5 minutes earlier, in which we were like, wow, that was a rough tackle. Um, and we're thinking like maybe that got things going, and as the game progressed, Ricky just happened to take a bad step and aggravate what was already there. So that's one way to look at it, but at the same time, Ricky has been the target of a lot of aggressive play the entire season. A lot of people know that he's a small guy. You take him off his game, you make him feel uncomfortable, and he's not going to feel as free to make the passes or play like he wants to. But Ricky, credit to him. My God, he continued playing. Who knows if the injury got worse because he continued playing, but he was. I guess that adrenaline was rushing enough to that where he can make that nice pass to Jovelic, who scored the game-winning goal, and then people were wondering, well, why is he injured? Why can't he play on Saturday if he was, on the podium celebrating with his teammates? Well, that's how injuries are. You don't really feel the
Adrenaline.
effect until you sit there and you cool down and you wake up the following morning and you realize I can't get out of bed, or I can't walk straight. And
I've spoken to
yeah,
people
I
that told
mean,
me that they tore their ACL and they walked on it for a couple days until they got their surgery. So like you can walk on it. Now him running and game winning assist, I've never heard of anything like that.
yeah,
But I've heard of you being able to walk on it for a while before the surgery.
yeah, and
And
like
Mr.
as
Krabs,
me,
you forgot Pensil.
yeah. Now me, for example, I can speak from personal experience. I've had two knee surgeries on my right knee over the last 16 months or so, to remove torn cartilage, and then later it was actually a fragment of bone the size of a peanut floating around my kneecap. And let me tell you, I could walk and I can move a little faster, right? But there was pain there, and it wasn't until I had the surgery and had that repaired that I felt a lot better. Granted, I'm still going through the healing process. My last surgery was in March, and I'm still have some inflammation, and that's me. I'm just a regular Joe, right? I used to play. The last time I played was like 10 years ago, so it's been a while. But here you have Ricky Puig, right? Top flight professional, and he takes his injury. These guys are in such great condition, man. They could probably run and run and run and run. But why would you risk him going out there and suffering,
No, he,
aggravating the injury even further, and maybe even sacrificing his career? Um, and
no, he
I
can't play
think
with
it's
the
I
torn
think it's the right
ACL.
decision to shut him down.
No, I mean
Unfortunately, but
I don't think that there was like well, I don't even think it was an option. You have a torn ACL a week later, you're not playing. I don't even think he's
yeah.
walking fast. He might be limping around. All right, so how do you think that this affects the LA Galaxy on Saturday though? Because I know you have Peck, I know you have Jovelic is how you like to pronounce it,
Yeah,
and then you
Daniel
still have
Leach.
And then Pencil. So your attack is still strong. You have Michael Royce. So how does this affect the attack?
That's a very good question. It's something that we broached earlier today, and Bob and I were talking on the Wiseman podcast, and somebody brought up that question, like,
Shout
how does
out to
this LA
Tyler
Galaxy?
from the Wiseman
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
So
So the question was like, can the LA Galaxy, perform well and still continue to perform well without Ricky Puig? And the this season, I think they had like 5 matches without him, and they only lost one. And this was a match that they had
they were three
in
one and one, 3 wins, one draw, one loss. I
yeah.
looked it up earlier today.
And the one loss was away to St. Louis on a very hot, muggy day. It was like an afternoon match in St. Louis, and Galaxy just does not do well in those games. One of the losses earlier in the season was away to Austin in similar conditions where it was hot and muggy.
But
And
what I did see in those 5 games is that with Pooch, the average was 2.5 goals per game. Those 5 games, they averaged 1.5 goals a game. I might be off by hundredth of a point, but more or less it was a goal difference when he is playing and when he isn't.
Well, one of the things that we were concerned, like, oh my God, the team has the team is going through a rebuild, right? Keep that in mind, by the way, through all of this. This team headed into MLS Cup is going through a rebuild. I mentioned this before, right? They're ahead of the curve. So the team is going through this rebuild, and they have Will Kuntz building a club around Riqui Puig, who's the centerpiece. So you have all these different parts that are at his disposal. But Gabriel Peck, who now you can speak about him and say, wow, this guy is fantastic. He wasn't putting up numbers at the start of the season. Joseph Paintsil was, but that's because Riqui Puig was not really clicking with Peck yet. He, for some reason or other, Peck would go on these runs and Puig would not find him, would not get the ball to him. And so the question was like, wow, is it because Peck is not acclimating to the system? Or is it because Riqui has been doing the one thing that we always, poke holes in his game here and News Across the Galaxy? We would say, Puig is very talented, fantastic, good footballing IQ, but he tries to be the hero so much. He's always doing his hero ball. He tries to be a box-to-box midfielder, and when he shouldn't. He should be able to rely on his teammates. That's why he has so much possession of the ball. You look at his numbers; he's always holding on to the ball because he wants to do everything.
Yeah, he has by far the most touches in the league.
Yeah, and so we were like, dude, pass the ball to Peck. And he wouldn't, right? He would try to do it himself. He'd try to take a shot from way outside the box. And we're like, no, give it a Peck. So he gets injured, right? And people are like, oh my God, this is it. The ceiling's about to fall in on the season. And so there was like some question as to like what's going to happen. Some of the pundits were like, this might be a blessing in disguise because now the team can figure out how they can work without him, and maybe they can incorporate what's known as Vanny ball, possession-minded attack. And so Galaxy, one of the things that they have now, they haven't had in a long, long time, is depth, especially in midfield. And so they have a lot of good pieces. They have Diego Fagundes, Mark Delgado, Edwin Cerrillo. These are all players that you get put in there, and these guys could probably be starters on some other MLS clubs. And so they started playing around with that. They put them in, and guess what? All of a sudden, that attack, it didn't happen right away, but it did happen eventually. It became much more dynamic, much more fluid. And you know who started scoring goals? Gabriel Peck, because they were getting the ball to him on breaks. And all of a sudden, the LA Galaxy offense, which was so dependent on Riqui Puig and maybe Joseph Paintsil going on runs, all of a sudden they have this other tool. And also unlocked Dejan Joveljic. And so it took a while, right? He was out for 4 games. And guess what? During that time, Greg Vanney was able to do something that he hadn't done since he came back with his club. And that's win more than 2 games in a row. We was like a running joke. Like the entire time Vanney had come back, LA Galaxy had not won 2 games, more than 2 games in a row. So they would get to 2 games, they would have a draw or they would lose. And this time they won 4 games in a row without Puig. And so the question was like, wow, they're actually playing a lot more dynamic, fluid, free-flowing style without Riqui Puig. This is fantastic. And so Riqui comes back, and the question is he going to buy into it? Is he going to fit into this whole Vanny ball?
And he bought into it.
And his first game back as a starter was against LAFC, and it was a stinker for him. It just did not go well. He had a really bad match. Galaxy at the Rose Bowl match, the Galaxy lost. Jalen Neal got dunked on by Kai Kamara, and the Galaxy just gave up 2 really bad goals. And Riqui did not look good. And
but
so
eventually he bought in.
Well, after that, the Galaxy went another run, and then as the season wore on, he started finding Peck more. And Paintsil started coming back around too, and they started finding Joveljic more in the box. And so
that's when
all
you
of a
guys
sudden,
went back up in the standings.
And that's when Galaxy went on a run and they started winning big games. And that's in that Galaxy offense that people have been talking about so much for the last few months. That's where it all started. It took Riqui Puig to get injured for him to see that, hey, things could work out, but you have to buy into it. You have to give into the system and not try to do everything on your own. You look at how Puig plays now compared to how he played at the start of the season. It's 2 different things. Even though if you to the eye you'll be like, oh, he looks like a squirrel, on crack or something running around all over the place. But you look at him and you see that he's not trying to do everything on his own anymore.
I see everybody in the chat talking about churrasco, and I'm not going to bring it up. We'll wait till the end of the show. But apparently somebody said that they're from LA and they don't understand what churrasco is. Blew my mind that because they're from LA, they say they don't know what churrasco is. But again, I'll get to that at the end of the show.
I love
So
churrasco,
we'll
man.
see. Look, I don't understand why that means that you wouldn't know what churrasco is. But again, we'll get to that at the end of the show. All right. So Bob has joined us. I'm going to bring him from the backstage. And Bob, thank you for joining us, man. How you doing, sir? And you are
of course. Thanks for having
Bob?
me. Just got off a podcast with Lacuna Galaxiana. And man, those guys are untalkable. They are so high up on their own horse, man. They are loving Galaxy. So just trying to bring a fresh perspective in there was you got to put my boxing gloves on. I know this is a little friendlier atmosphere for me here.
Good luck. Well, yeah, here, for sure. Well, because I have no dog in the fight, and Edgar is definitely a lot cooler. I wanted to ask you, Bob. We just spent the last couple minutes talking about the Riqui Puig injury, and I know I texted you the other day. You said that you hated it. I also hate it because you want to beat a full strength team, right? You win the chip, whatever. After you win the chip, it doesn't really matter, but that's what you want. My question to you, I know, like I said, you two have been a guest on this show for the last couple of weeks because you guys have made this run, obviously. And you said that the Red Bulls kind of go the Bill Belichick route. We're going to take away your best player. Riqui Puig would have been that. Yeah. I'm assuming Peck is now going to be that. So if you're going to try to take away the right side of the field for the LA Galaxy, are you expecting to possibly suffer because of Pansil on the left?
First of all, as many times as I've watched Galaxy, I'm still not sure which side, which winger is going to be on more often. So I don't think that that's really a winning philosophy anyway with wings like that. Okay. I mean, you saw they did a good job with Facundo Torres, one of the best wingers in Major League Soccer over the past week. So I don't know what the plan is. And that's kind of, I think, the scared unknown without Puig. And I was saying this, in a podcast I did earlier today. When Puig is on the field, you know what the plan is for LA Galaxy, right? It's your job to come up with a defense that is going to counter that plan and then let Greg Vanney adjust at halftime. It's like the ball's in your court. You're playing, you're showing your hand first. Now I think it's up to Vanney to come up with something new, show it to Red Bull, and then up to Sandro Schwartz at halftime to react. And I think, that does play a little bit maybe to Galaxy's advantage. We have a good bench and a lot of different ways we can come out of the back, but I'm not sure the tactical changes being made at half. It's not something we've had to do. We've imposed our game plan on every team we've faced in the postseason so far. We've made them play our game. So not that that's not in the bag, but it's a new unknown. It's like, okay, we've been playing chess starting as white and now we're the black team. And we're going to react to what you do now. And I'm not sure that's a spot they necessarily want to be in. So, obviously I don't want to ever say that the team is better without Puig on the field. That certainly is not the case. That would be the furthest thing from the truth. But I think from a coaching standpoint, Sandro Schwartz's job got a lot more difficult over the past 48 hours.
I agree. The unknown is scary because, I mean, that's a great point that you brought up. The fact that you could come out with a game plan, and now you're not really sure what to game plan for because you don't know what the Galaxy are going to do. I mean, you have 5 games of film to work off of, like Edgar said. All he did was miss 5 games, so I guess you go back to that and see how that worked out.
I don't think that's even a useful...
Royce wasn't even there at that point. I don't know who else has been added to the squad since then, but yeah, that was earlier in the year before the summer transfer window.
Yeah, I don't think that's even a useful exercise. This is something else completely. This is an MLS Cup, baby. It doesn't matter what you did in the middle of the season against Sporting Kansas City when Puig wasn't there. That is not what we're going to see. That is not what, the game is all about. I think that there's a lot, the guys I just spoke with said that, Galaxy is in a better place now. They're fighting for Riqui. Yeah, I don't buy that. You lost your best player. You're taking a hit. And in the meantime, you want to talk about vibes. Look at Red Bull's team. They're out signing DP striker, or actually not even a DP. They're out signing strikers from Bayern in the meantime. They're bringing guys and making their club better while they're in the post. Like, how you don't see that everywhere. Klopp's behind the scenes pulling strings, working his magic. And I think there's a little bit of a greeting. Hey, why not us? My co-host on the podcast that I work with, the Designated Pundints, go find us on YouTube. He was there with a garbage bag during Beckham's first game at Giant Stadium, pouring Monopoly money on him when he ran out. Like, this is a little bit of a rivalry. There's a little bit going on behind the scenes there. And I don't like these big historical scenes about anything, but two originals, man, there's a lot. Red Bull wants it. They know we've never had it. Galaxy, I have to hear these guys crying. Edgar, it's been 10 years. It's been listen, man, in 96, we haven't had one like that. It is what it is. I think that, it's going to be a fantastic game. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to do what we've done so far this season. Anyway, this certainly is not something I would have told you even a month ago would have been capable for Red Bulls. So we're on borrowed time, and sometimes that's the dangerous dog, is the one with nothing to lose.
I mean, you're both playing with house money, because neither one of you thought that you would be. At least I don't think that the Red Bulls thought. I know the Galaxy, Edgar's told me they didn't think that they would be in the MLS Cup this year, and I don't think that going into the playoffs. I mean, you tell me, Bob. Did you expect to be in the MLS Cup? Maybe a run, but I don't know if you expected MLS Cup.
Absolutely not. But one of the things that I've noticed, and I've talked about this in past weeks, Orlando hasn't beaten anyone during the season. They were fantastic at home. They had a much, much better record than Red Bull, but they were beating teams that they should have beaten and gotten all 3 points. Red Bull's put up stinkers, losing to Earthquakes. Like, they've had an up and down season, but they've beaten teams all along the way. They beat Miami early on in the season by a handy amount of goals. They beat 4-0. Cincinnati twice, and now on the path to the playoffs, they beat 6 playoff teams and like 5 non-playoff teams like the whole year. That's the story. That's the game plan Red Bulls had, and now we're playing spoiler. I love it. I want the cup, but I would be happy just where we are right now. And just to remind you, 2 years ago, Red Bull had the best away record in Major League Soccer. Last year, they were a much better results-oriented team than we were last year. And just last year, LA Galaxy was not in the top of the standings, out of the playoff picture. So a lot changes in a little bit of time, but let's not forget, that's parity, man. These teams, the best team in Major League Soccer to the worst team, they're like this close, And, I just want to remind everyone that I really like Red Bull's chance. I think that it's going to be a fantastic match. And I don't care if we lose by 1, we might as well lose by 30. So I don't want to hear people in the chat saying, after you lose 6-0, I don't care. If we lose 1-0, 12-0, I don't care. Like, throw something out there, try something new. It is what it is.
And you know what? And I don't want to, because we spoke about it for like 10 minutes earlier, but I do want to get your opinion real quick. Twitterverse has been talking about, a lot of Inter Miami fans, but honestly, in general, have been talking about, we hate this playoff system. The 16th team in the Supporters Shield standing is in the MLS Cup. We hate this. They should get rid of it. I love the playoffs. I think that it's the best thing. I think all leagues should do it. Keep all the fans interested instead of having. I mean, the Red Bulls would have been done back in like June or July. So, Bob, what do you think about the playoff system? Would you rather just have the Supporters Shield? Because if it was that case, then
no, absolutely not. You show me someone who values the Supporters Shield, I'll show you someone who's never won MLS Cup before. It is what it is. I've done it 3 times. The first time we popped champagne in the parking lot. The next 2 times, we got the playoffs. We got a job to do here, and did not get it done either one of those times. So I don't value the Supporters Shield. It's not a real trophy. It doesn't matter to me at all, except that you have that all important home stretch through all of the playoffs. That's really the trophy you're winning, is home field advantage throughout the actual tournament that matters to everyone here in America.
Bob, you're my guy. That's what I've been saying all year long. I'm not a big fan of the Supporters Shield, but I want to have that home game for the final, and that's what I was preaching all the way to the end. And I thought I would be there on Saturday, but so be it. I was going to ask you another question, but I blanked because I was so surprised that you literally echoed what I've been saying all year. That I remember what I was going to say. The MLS cares so little about the Supporter Shield. Miami won the Supporter Shield back in 2001. Do you know what their prize was for winning the Supporter Shield? They literally got taken out of the league. the defending Supporters Shield champions, did not get to play in the 2002 season because they were eliminated from the season. So that's how much they care about the best record.
Yeah. Well, it's not even an MLS trophy. It was made by supporters, funded by supporters, and it's still an independent group of supporters who runs that trophy. Bob out.
The Galaxy
started that trophy.
Yeah. Dan has the mute button, Mike. All you got to do is ask.
All right. Edgar, going into this game, is Peck the X factor?
I think it's a Miguel Berry.
Miguel Berry. Okay.
Just kidding. I did that for chuckles because a lot of Galaxy fans have been joking how this game is going to be like 1-1 down in the wire, and all of a sudden they go to the bench. Miguel Berry comes in and scores like some crazy goal at the death.
Well, you don't want to go to a shootout. I promise you that.
No. But I think the X factor is going to be Dejan Jovalic because we already know what Peck can do. And Seattle gave him a very difficult time. Peck wasn't as free to roam around like he usually does, and a lot of that has to do with the pressure they're also putting on Riqui Puig and Marco Reus in the first half as well. Pinso did get free, took a shot, didn't go in, but Peck was not the usual Peck that we saw. I think Gabriel Peck can still play he has a hand to play in this match, but I think. It's all going to come down to what Jovalic can do. If Jovalic can disrupt, cause some kind of chaos in the six, it's gonna definitely get a lot of focus on him and maybe free up Peck. But if you can get the ball to him and he can put it on frame, chances are he's going to score. The thing about him though is that when you talk about LA Galaxy, you talk about the three Ps, right? Peck, Puig, and Pinso. But, very few people have been saying anything about Jovalic, and that's because he's kind of been flying so low under the radar. And a lot of people here in Galaxy Land they're on the fence about whether or not he is a forward that we can count on game in, game out to be consistent. And a lot of people have said, Galaxy needs to go out and find a new forward, a more consistent, reliable forward. And Galaxy GM Will Kuntz has said, no, he's our guy. We're going to stick with him. And so he's what we have. And he scored, a bunch of goals in the playoffs right now. And he scored that game-winning goal against Seattle. So he understands what it takes to make a difference in these 10 situations. But now it's MLS Cup, which is a whole different monster. And I'm just wondering if he can actually do something and create a legacy for himself here in LA.
He had, I'm not a big fan of the whole XG stat, honestly, but he had the third highest XG per 90 minutes of anybody in the league. So the fact that he wasn't in the top in the scoring, even though his XG was expected so high, I don't know. The Galaxy fans might be right. I agree. You might need to change him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we talked about this before. I think Jovalic is just a guy. He's the striker and the last guy to touch the ball before it goes towards the net on the best offensive team in Major League Soccer, possibly one of the best attacks Major League Soccer has ever seen when they're at full strength. I would say that about Galaxy. They are fantastic. The way they attack the ball is great. But if you don't want to talk about XG, don't talk about the goals minus expected goals, of which Jovalic is in the negative on the season. That's very, very hard to do. I don't think he's surgical. He's not an X factor guy. He just is in the right spot on the right team. If you gave me a choice between him and Brian White, I'd bring Brian White back. I just don't value what Jovalic has to offer, except that he's the guy on the best attacking team in Major League Soccer, with Puig feeding him the ball. And quite honestly, a coach who's putting them in a play style to, give him success each and every match. I don't think he himself is anything special. We're not going to have, a Jovalic statue outside Carson anytime soon.
And no shade to you, Edgar, because I don't like Boagna either. So I think both nines in LA.
I'm going to defend Joveljic a little here because one of the things that the guys in the pod would always say about me was like, man, Edgar, you're like a Joveljic stan, right? Because I was always defending him, and I said this guy is amazing because when he first came to the club, he was doing some incredible things. Granted, the team would put him in the second half to replace Chicharito. Or to come in games where it was still close, but he would come in and he would be the nail in the coffin. He would do these amazing things. Like one time, there was a break and a counter, and Efrain Alvarez was going down on the field, and the ball came to Joveljic, and we thought, oh, he's gonna run, he's gonna follow, the play and try to get the ball to Efra, and instead, in the run of play, like in the middle of the field, he does a chilena, a bicycle kick to get the ball into space, right into the path of Efra Alvarez, who goes in for the goal. And he was doing amazing things. And so all the Galaxy fans were very excited about what he can do once Chicharito was no longer in the picture. When Chicharito finally got injured, and it was Jovelijic's chance to stand up. Sorry, my dog's upset because we mentioned LAFC. So, once it was his chance to step up and have the main role, it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and I think it's because at that time it was like trying to put a circle into a square peg. I think that's the term. I can't remember exactly what it was at this moment, because the whole system was set up for somebody like a Chicharito. You launch the ball into the box and he gets on it, or you try to get the ball to him, and that's not who Joveljic was. He was the kind of guy you give him the ball outside the box and he'll find something to create. He was able to make stuff happen out of nothing, and all of a sudden you're telling him to change his whole system, and it wasn't who he was. And then as time wore on, you could tell it affected his confidence. Sorry, calm down, girl. And so it affected his confidence, and so he didn't have that same spark that he did when in that 2022 season, and he's kind of had to rebuild himself. So he's had to change the style of play that he does to be more of like the guy that he's at the end of a series of passes, or he's the guy you're going to look for at the top of the box, and maybe he'll just take one shot towards the goal, whereas before he was more creative. He's not that kind of player anymore. And to see him celebrate though, it's a good thing, because there were times where he was, at the start, especially at the start of this season, he would score a goal and he would just kind of like be like, all right, whatever. And people were like, what's wrong with him? Well, he wasn't happy. Well, seems like winning solves everything, though, right?
Of course. Those 5 games that you said that Puig didn't play and that Peck stood out. How did Joveljic look in those 5 games?
Let me go back and look, because I know at one point he was injured. So give me a minute while I
just to speak to that point a little more. If you ask Greg Vanney what his perfect team build is, it would be really close to the attack that LA Galaxy has right now. So while Joveljic, I'm not going to sing his praises and say he's some kind of elite tier MLS guy. He's played well. He's taken the opportunity. No one else is scoring those goals. It's him. And I think what his most important attribute is that he took pressure off of the team to sign someone in that position to go out and get Peck and Paint Still, guys who that really, really were going to fit Greg Vanney's system. Because as soon as you saw this roster preseason, you're like, Greg Vanney's got a 10-2 elite wingers. This is exactly what they want to do. So I do like that build, and I'm not sure that given the opportunity to do things differently, Greg Vanney would have changed anything at all. Maybe address the back line a little bit, but it certainly wouldn't be not taking Peck and Paint Still over Joveljic.
Bro, okay, and Edgar, you're on mute right now. All good.
Thank you. Yeah, while Puig was out, Joveljic had 3 goals and 3 assists.
Okay, so he stepped it up.
Yeah.
Okay. My worry for the Galaxy is they were running roughshod against Colorado, was it, and Minnesota, and then they ran into a good defensive team, and I thought that Seattle was going to take them to extra time, possibly penalty kicks, and I thought that you guys were in trouble. Now, you scored late, but seeing the way Seattle played against you guys and how they made it a game and gave themselves a chance, even though they don't have an attack, I think that bodes well for the Red Bulls. Edgar, coming off of the game against the Sounders, seeing what you saw and the fact that Puig isn't going to be playing, how do you see Saturday going? Like, do you feel confident after the performance against the Sounders Do you feel confident going into this game on Saturday? Well, I mean, I know you're gonna say no because I know that you're very respectful. But how do you feel going into Saturday?
Well, Bob and I discussed this earlier, in which I said, this Galaxy team has found ways to win in different fashion. Like they had, they were able to take care of a Colorado team that's suffering. They were able to break down a Minnesota team that came in with a vaunted defense. And then they went up against an old foe in Seattle with Brian Spencer, who has had Greg Vanney in his back pocket for most of their time together. And Seattle, man, Seattle played them hard. I mean, there was nobody in that stadium that felt like the Galaxy was gonna, come away with a comfortable victory. And if they were, they're lying to you. But at the half, everybody was scared. Everybody was tense, and I even went to go grab a tall one. Hey, calm down. Sorry. I mean, I went to go grab a tall one, and that's something I never do. I usually have my drinks before the game. I don't go and grab one at the half, but I needed something because I was really tense. And so I don't expect things to be that easy, as easy as with Colorado and Minnesota with Red Bull. I keep, I've been hearing, listening to Bob and watching some of the highlights and what Red Bull can do. And I think if they make things really uncomfortable for the other Galaxy, kind of like what Seattle did, then it's gonna be difficult for the LA Galaxy. I like you said, I'm a very respectful guy, right? Because I have a lot of respect for a lot of different clubs in this team. But I felt a lot more comfortable playing against Colorado and Minnesota than I did against Seattle and now Red Bull New York. So I expect Red Bull to come out there and make things difficult for us. And with no Riqui Puig, that's the thing. We keep bringing it up. It's like Bob said, you knew what the Galaxy was gonna do, right? You knew who you could get the ball to, but now you have you can bring in these other guys off the bench who are really good. But how are they gonna what are we gonna see? Are we gonna see that same dynamic, fluid offense that we saw in the middle of the season, or is it gonna be something a little bit different? And that's just why I'm trying to see what Greg Vanney's gonna cook up with on Saturday. Give me a second. Let my
No,
dog
all
out.
good.
Crap.
That's fine. A lot of people in the chat are asking about. Asking about
The defense.
the Red Bulls defense, if it's as good as Seattle. Now, I wouldn't say it's as good as Seattle's, but it's not, because when you look statistically, technically Miami allowed less goals. But I think the 6 goals that Miami scored on the Red Bulls really skewed that statistic. The Red Bulls have their play style alone is a pestering defense. It's going to pressure you a lot, and that's coming from somebody that just watches them on occasion. So now I give it to you, Bob.
So Red Bull have 3 guys: Sean Nealis, Dylan Nealis, Andre Reyes, who are all center backs. You also have Noah Isla, who's a young Swedish. He's like 6'7". He's giant. And together, the 3 of them, or whatever 3 pairing of the best 4 you got, have done something in the playoffs that no other team has done. They've exerted their style on everyone else. They beat Columbus, they beat Orlando, they beat NYCFC, other really good defensive teams. So I think that Red Bull's defense is right up there. How they're playing right now, they are a high pressure team, but they're a little more mature than they've been in the past. Having 3 center backs definitely reduces some of the mistakes on the outside. Also allows Tolkien to play upfield. You got guys like Cameron Harper, who's been absolutely lights out. Daniel Edelman, guys who are maybe not household names that for their defensive prowess, but certainly can step up to the occasion. When Red Bull really needed a DP attacker this offseason, they got a DP center defensive midfielder in Felipe Carballo. So this team is very sound. Tactically, they know what they're doing. A lot of games this season, they have not been 100%. And I think that lends a lot to playing other teams' play style and not exerting what they want to do on other teams. Seeing Seattle gives me hope, because while Red Bull's defense is not quite as mature, because, Seattle's been playing the same formation the same way for years and years and years, new players, same system. Red Bull's a little less settled on defense, but man, they have been fantastic in this postseason. They put on an absolute clinic. They've shut down Facundo Torres. They've done, everything. New York City FC just had no chance at even breaking that down. So I like what they
4
do. It's
games, 3 clean sheets.
Yeah, that. That is the one. And two goals against Columbus in a 2-2 draw that you end up winning to advance is not something to be ashamed of. I don't see Red Bull keeping up too much, but when I looked at some stats, I really wanted to know the teams that didn't get run over by Galaxy. Who kept Galaxy from scoring 2 this year? And I looked: LAFC, Austin, Atlanta, LAFC, NYCFC, all defensive teams. They've actually had a little bit of success limiting the LA Galaxy, and teams that have beaten LA Galaxy: Dallas, Houston, Austin, LAFC, all defensive. Other good results: Charlotte and Seattle, 0-0 results. So against teams that have the best defenses, Galaxy has maybe struggled a little bit. I would like to take out all the without Puig, here's what we did, throw it out. That was middle of the season. That was against, Sporting KC. I think one was at RSL. Another one was home against NYCFC. Kind of, powder puff games, if I'd really have to break that down for you. And this is a bigger event. This is MLS Cup Final. I really think that it is a little bit of uncharted territory as far as what they, really intend to do. But yeah, this defense can stick right up there with everyone else. And Carlos Coronel has been one of the best players in the MLS playoffs so far. So I like what they can
but
do.
not in the regular season, though.
Not in the regular season. No. And I talked about this a little earlier. Being a goalkeeper is kind of a love and hate business. You stop a penalty, you're on top of the world. You make a bad pass back, and now all of a sudden you're getting run out of town. And I think that's Coronel's. He's always been sound. He's always been strategically sound. He's been a good keeper for a long time, but he's excelled in that penalty shootout, stopping 3 in a row. That's certainly, he's by all accounts a film guy. He likes to know. He's going to have stats on every Galaxy player, their mother, he's going to know which way your grandfather went last time he took a penalty. He's going to have that information readily available. That's part of the Red Bull network. That's when you're a global brand, you do have global networks, and you have ways to get, those numbers. So I'm really favoring Coronel and having a good match. And if Red Bull want to take anything away, they're going to need him to stand on his head again. Part of the Red Bull defense is limiting shots, limiting those opportunities. And we talked about it a little bit before. In an area that Red Bull really has a strength over the Galaxy is in set pieces, in corner play. You just watched Orlando. Orlando wasn't gun shy. They knew that they didn't want the ball, going out for a corner. They wanted a quality shot on target, and that led to an extra pass they didn't need to make. Maybe, playing around with the ball too much, making, enough to make an error instead of putting something on frame. And, they're going to stop. They're going to get in the way of some shots. They're going to stop you from being where you want to be. This is a mature press. This isn't like what they were doing last year, which is just run at the player as fast as you can and hope to trip him. That's a thing of the past. That was, a developing idea on the way to where they are now. Now they're steering play. Yeah, you could pass the ball to those two guys, but you can't pass the ball to this guy. Or one of my favorites from when I used to play is like kind of show them like, oh yeah, that pass it. No, and then you jump on it. Something like that, they're just a little better in every phase than they have been all season long. This is a season without Emil Forsberg, and when that happened, it wasn't only the loss of him, it was the loss of Lewis Morgan, who had to take a step back and play in midfield, not the best position for the team. So, the Red Bull is really clicking right now. They're not looking to go out and try to outscore Galaxy, and I don't think that would be a successful route to try to go, but they got a lot of guys on defense who can put the ball in the back of the net off a set piece. They have a lot of guys in midfield who can contribute. Caballo, what an amazing strike he had against NYCFC. I didn't know he had that in him, a laser from outside the box. It was still rising as it was going into the net. It's going to be tricky because they have
and Tolkien will laser those in there on those set pieces.
That ball was on a rope to Andre Reyes. That was, one of the crosses of the season, and I think that Andre Reyes take the credit away from him. Give the credit to Tolkien, who dropped that ball in there in a space very few other people could. So, yeah, I'm interested. I am thinking that Galaxy is going to have a little tougher time, and the fact that we're not going to see Puig distribute that ball, turn his back, dance around. It's going to open up. Fagundes is going to get pressured if he's trying to play in that side of the field. And I think he's a little slower. He's a half step off where he used to be. And he's 6 steps behind what Puig was able to do on the field. I still think he's a fantastic player, but I don't think it's fair to ask anyone to step in as a number 10 in this situation, just knowing that, you take that extra quarter of a second and now the ball's stripped and got a ball going the other direction.
I think this game is really interesting because I think both teams are going to be able to implement their style of play, right? The Red Bulls don't want to play with the ball. They want to press you. Galaxy want to hold the ball. I don't know if how the defenders are. The Galaxy, are they prone to, because like, for example, Inter Miami, the worst thing you can do is press them high because their defenders will give away the ball. I don't know if the Galaxy suffer with that because we play out of the back, even though we constantly turn the ball over in the back. Edgar, does your team, how are your defenders with the ball at their feet?
They try to get rid of it as soon as possible.
Okay.
But just all jokes aside, Miki
Not comfortable.
Yamane is he's a good wing back. He likes to get up into the middle of the field and sometimes up into the final third and whip some passes in. He's not going to be the kind of guy that's going to make a run up the flank, but he'll definitely join the attack as they're trying to get the ball out of the back. And on the other side, you have John Nelson. John Nelson is more of a stay-at-home wingback, but if you get him the ball in the middle of the field, he's not afraid to carry it and either take a shot, which he scored a screamer earlier in the season, like towards the end of the season, or he'll be able to get the ball to somebody who can do some damage with it. As far as our center backs are concerned, Maya Yoshida, he's more like the kind of guy to just get the ball and get out of there, head it out of there. But then there's the X factor, and this is something I was telling Bob about, and the last time we spoke was Carlos Emiro Garces, he's a center back. And when you think about who's in the Galaxy defense, you've heard of the captain Maya Yoshida, and maybe you've heard of John Nelson, and you might have heard of Miki Yamane, but who's Carlos Garces, right? A lot of people were saying, well, where's Jalen Neal? Well, Jalen Neal was a starter until he just couldn't cut it. And I still think that he has a bright future in this league and probably with the national team. But right now, at this moment, Carlos Emiro Garces is what the Galaxy needs. And he came in here as a much more polished, more refined, more rugged, complete player who was with Deportivo Pereira in Colombia. And
For those of you that don't know, that's Cucho Hernandez's old team. That's a Colombian, another Colombian in the MLS.
Yeah, and he's a tough dude. And the funny thing is that they picked him up way, way back in March, right, on a loan. And at that time, Galaxy was having issues at center back. So we're like, okay, great. They're going to bring him in. Hopefully he gets his visa right away. And, everything's great up when we have him ready for a few matches coming up. He was there and nobody knew when the heck he was coming to LA. And we knew he was on the team. We heard about sightings. We saw him on the bench at some point, but he never played. And then finally he got like 1 minute, like late in the season. Then he got 5 minutes, and then they brought him in for a match in the Leagues Cup, and he did fantastic. And everybody was like, "Wow, this guy is really good. Can we see more of this?" But it wasn't until Jalen Neal was just having a really difficult time. He wasn't the same since coming back from injury last year, and so they put in Garces after a match against Portland. He started, and since he's been the starter at center back, Galaxy have only lost one game, and that was that game that they lost to Houston at the Def. He's just a solid center back. He's not afraid to get the ball and carry it out of there. He'll throw up some shibs if he has to, and you could tell this guy has just came from a completely different environment than Jalen Neal or Maya Yoshida, and he's not afraid to be rugged and gritty like New York says they are.
Fun fact, Carlos Garces, he was the starter for Deportivo Pereira when they won their only championship in team history back in 2022. That's usually a second division team. That's actually my team in Colombia, which is a sorry team because I only root for sorry team. But we won one championship in 2022. He was the center back there. So, yes, he is good. All right, so let's get it to it. Bob, we got the game on Saturday. Oh, before I tell you that, actually, I heard that the Red Bulls bought 700 tickets for the fans to go and that they're going to comp them travel.
Well, yeah, they are Doing a fantastic job. 700 tickets is just about
Awesome.
most of the South Ward. It is also including a small stipend for like room and board. It's still an astronomical flight from New York to LA. That's the most expensive flight, in the country.
For sure.
I can't make the trip out even with the added funds. I knew I had some business to take care of this weekend, so unfortunately I'll be watching from a local hang. But yeah, astronomical job by Red Bull front office making that happen. They've been known to do stuff like this all the time. I remember the last away match I went to was probably 5 or 6 years ago in the playoffs, DC United, and they gave us everything: free ticket, free bus, transportation, the whole deal. Get yourselves down there, and we have to wear a hard hat because that was RFK Stadium back in the day, and there were pieces of rebar falling down on the supporter section from above. That is not a joke. There were sections of that stadium that were hard hat only with barricades up. But yeah, fantastic job by the front office. Would have been great to go.
Yeah.
Not my time. Maybe next year.
That is awesome. And real quick, Danny, you root for Madrid and the Nets cap off. Yeah, I well documented. I root for all bad teams. That is why I started the Battered Fans. I mean, literally, I'm a Battered fan all the way
I
around.
thought it was like a recipe for something yummy, like battered wings. or
No,
something.
no. I'm just a Battered fan. I said it even in my wedding vows like 10 years ago without knowing what was coming in the future. So I've been saying I'm a Battered fan for a very long time. Oh, well, I'll talk about that another time. All right. So Bob, Saturday, how you feeling about the game? How do you think it's gonna go?
I think I'm going to go, I'm changing my prediction a little bit. I don't think both teams are going to score. I don't think that that's really in the cards. I think we're going to see a goal and someone's going to need to open up. And I think when that team opens up, that's going to be it. I am hoping it's my Red Bull. I would love to see like 2 first half goals, like against NYCFC. And then, second half, you can, get 11 guys behind the ball. I don't know where the 11th guy's coming from, but, just doing that. And, this team is really put together a special run, and it's been great to cover it. It's been great to be a part of it. We are on borrowed time, but we've been on borrowed time for a really long time now. And I've put together a few just cases. Just again, I'm doing I think 6-7 podcasts this week, and I know you didn't pull me on here to tell me how Galaxy is so great and why they're going to win the match. So I've been making the case for Red Bull. I've been going out there and doing it, and I think there are a couple phases of play that Red Bull is just better. They, we watched Galaxy kind of pass the ball and get chased around by Seattle in their own end for a few minutes at a time last week. That's not going to fly against Red Bull. They're going to need to dish that ball up and get it upfield. I hope that Galaxy tries to play it out of the back because that's a recipe for disaster against this Red Bull squad, against Lewis Morgan, who has just had an extra gear in him this postseason. I know he hasn't put a lot in the back of the net, but man, for someone with a surgically repaired everything, he can haul, man. He has got some speed on him, and he gets back. He plays defense too. I think that's something, else that you're going to see with this squad. There's no, I'm not going to get back. That's not my responsibility. There's guys shuttling balls. They're rotating. They're doing a great job. And, it's a pleasure to see this team grow. It's a pleasure to have Sandro, each and every week in the press conferences telling us, what's going right with this team. We're in a situation now where we're signing forwards while we're still in the playoffs. When was the last time you saw a splash forward signing when the team is in the playoffs? Like, that's just not something you see. So while on Galaxy, I know they're, playing it for Riqui, whatever their slogan is this offseason, there's got to be a little bit of deflating going on there. Just knowing your best player, your guy, the guy who touches the ball more than any other player in Major League Soccer isn't going to be there doing it for you. And in the meantime, Red Bull's like, we're on borrowed time. We're loose and fit. I talked last week about Emil Forsberg when he was taking a penalty and Columbus was trying to freeze him out in the box, and he's juggling the ball on his nose, getting cheered at for the fans. Like that's where we're at right now. So I don't think there's a lot of pressure. This is, I don't think this team is going to get caught up by the lights and made bigger than the moment. Sandro said, what do you think about MLS Cup? He's like, well, it's a game we got to prepare for, so let's go watch some film and get back out there. And I think that that's, a really dangerous recipe that they're going to be putting together. And, I think, I said it last week. Someone said, oh, they're good at set pieces and that's it. Well, that's a phase of play. That's a phase of play you got to be better than your opponent in. And that's a phase of play. Red Bull can absolutely beat the LA Galaxy here. So, I think that Red Bull have an advantage if it goes to penalties. I think Red Bull have an advantage, in other times of play. I think that there's going to be the possibility for some suspect card sign showings going on. I think that this game might have a penalty somewhere in the long run. And it's going to be, fantastic to watch, and I'm, like I said, I'm here to make the case for Red Bull. I couldn't be happier.
And just
3-3 tie is not in the works, Tank. 3-3 tie. This game does not have 6 goals in it.
I'm putting it out there because I like to root for a team when I watch the sports games. I'm rooting for the Red Bulls just because there's 10 original MLS teams. Only 3 of them have never won a chip. Red Bulls being one of them when they were the Metro Stars originally. I believe it's New England. I want to say Dallas is the third.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the 3.
So I think it's really cool to see one of those long droughts go away. So I'm rooting for the Red Bulls, and I think that they can win. But Edgar, Saturday, how are you feeling? How do you think this plays out?
Well, first of all, I just want to get this out of the way because I mentioned it to Bob and to the guys from the Wise Men at the end of our conversation, was that if it was Red Bull versus anybody else in the West, I'd definitely be cheering for the Red Bulls. Like I told Bob, I have a soft spot for the legacy squads in this league. I was there for the very first match for both squads. Galaxy versus Metro Stars, which to me is one of the greatest memories of my life, and just being there, watching the birth of this league, the birth of two great MLS
franchises.
Teams. Yeah, 2 great franchises. And it's just fascinating to me how their histories have been so different, over the years, where at the beginning you would think, they're both from such big markets that you would think that at some point or other they would both find some kind of success. But, here in MLS Cup, it's, like I said, it's a whole different beast. Greg Vanney is going to try to win an MLS Cup with LA Galaxy, something he was not able to do in 96 and in 99 when he was a player. I think that's something that's going to be sitting on the back of his mind. I'm not.
Do you guys hate DC United?
No, I think at the beginning
Yes.
there was some frustration because you ran into them twice in 96 and in 99. And so there's that rivalry. We ran into them also in on the run for the Galaxy's CONCACAF Champions Cup run in 97, I want to say. We ran into them and we beat them, and then Galaxy got to the final against Cruz Azul. We were up 2-0, and then Cruz Azul completely destroyed Mauricio Cienfuegos to the point where he was out, and then after that Cruz Azul came back to win 5-3 in that match, I remember. But we have a certain level of respect for DC United. So there's that. As far as
Didn't mean
the
to
legacy.
derail you. Yeah. Good.
No. As far as the legacy squad's concerned, it's San Jose. It's always been San Jose. That's like the biggest rival. With New York, it's more of like, hey, you're over there, we're over here. Respect, But it made me laugh when he said that his buddy was dumping Monopoly money on David Beckham at Giant Stadium, because I remember watching that match, and Galaxy did not play well up in Giant Stadium. They had a really rough time. This match it'll be interesting for me as as a fan, as somebody who's covered the league for so long, because I got to see both clubs at the beginning, and I get to see them at this terminus of the season. And like Bob was saying that New York, was playing so well just a couple of seasons ago, and it kind of seems like this season was lost, and all of a sudden they're here in the final with LA Galaxy, where they've been lost for so long. And I know, Bob, we've won cups, right? But they didn't come at the beginning. They lost to DC in 96. They lost to DC again in 99. They lost to San Jose in sudden death in 2001. And each one of those hurt. And then they lost to RSL and on penalties, and that hurt too. And so it feels like the LA Galaxy when they finally did win their championships, and every time they have won a cup, they paid the iron price. If you understand that
Yeah.
that terminology, so I feel like this is one of those situations where they're gonna have to go in there and get into the water and get thrown around by the surf, right? And then come out and say what's dead, it's dead and can never die, and then lift the trophy. But it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. I know what New York is going to bring, and I'm certain that Greg Batty and the staff who are much more expert at these things than I am. I mean, I'm just a pundit, right? They're going to be prepared. So it all comes down to what the Galaxy has to offer in that midfield. And I think they can do it, but it's not going to be an inflated score. I think it's going to be just like the first match between these two teams, where Galaxy won 2-1. And I think there's a lot of respect towards New York. If New York ends up winning, I'll feel that sense of like damn, we got this far and lost. But when you look at what this club was, just the last year to get to where they are now, nobody expected this, so it would still feel good. And at the same time, just me personally, somebody might get really upset with me, and I know Galaxy fans might are very like, no, we got to win everything. But if New York ends up winning, I wouldn't feel bad. I would feel really happy for them, to be honest. And like I said, but that's just me. That's just me.
Yeah.
But of course, I want to win that damn cup.
I don't know about Bob feeling good for Galaxy, but I do think that both of you take a step back a day or two later after a loss, whichever team loses, and you're happy with the way the season ended up. I mean, last season you had your supporter groups protesting,
Right.
Edgar, and look at where Gunson has gotten you in a year and a half. And Bob, I mean, you're playing with house money and you're signing strikers while you're still in the MLS playoffs. Like, I think both of you guys, I mean, initially, I'm sure it's going to hurt. But you take a step back a couple of days later, and you're feeling pretty good about the upcoming season. So, I mean, I think it's going to be great. Yeah.
Just one thing, because as you were saying that, you reminded me of Riqui Puig, right? Because he sacrificed so much to get to the cup, right? And he's not going to get to play in it. And not only that, because of his injury, he's gonna be gone probably until the middle of next summer. You probably won't see him until like League's Cup, right, or whatever. And so that beginning of the season is gonna be rough, right? And so it's kind of a sense of like, you got this far, win the damn thing, so that if next season, you don't have Riqui Puig and you're not able to pick up somebody that can fill that role, at least you have a championship that you can be like, damn, we did this, we won it, and we're not going to be as successful as last season, but at least we something came out of this sacrifice. Where
See that?
that's just so it's like you have to go and win this. You have to, and if you don't, damn, you got this far, you're good, but you're gonna feel like a missed opportunity, because how often do we get these opportunities to either play in a cup? They don't come that easy, especially next season we're getting San Diego. That's gonna be 30 teams, right?
Yep.
So,
but like 1 million of them make the playoffs. So I love the playoffs, but I would like to cut down the number of teams that make it. Just real quick, good.
I don't disagree. I did want to do just a stat correction, Edgar. Greg Vanney lost 3 cups with Galaxy as a player. He missed 2001 in that against the San Jose Earthquakes. Fantastic seeing you again. It's great. I really love my friends over, with the LA Galaxy, and it's going to be a great game. I'm here for it. And what's left to say? Play the damn game. We'll come back and talk about it after.
It is awesome. It's sad that the MLS season's coming to an end. I love the league. I know a lot of people are just learning to love it, and some people still criticize it. I love the league, and I mean, it sucks, but for me personally, I guess it's good that it's over, so I can start looking into the off season already, because my season's been over for almost a month now. And real quick, I'm gonna go with the Red Bulls. I think the way Seattle looked against the Galaxy gives me a belief that the Red Bulls can pull one off. And I think it might go to penalty kicks. I wouldn't be shocked to see a 1-1 draw and a crazy shootout where I think that the Red Bulls come out on top. That's how I think it might end up, 1-1 draw, and then shootout, 5-3 in the shootout.
You also said Seattle was going to win, right?
I did, and you know what? And I felt pretty good about it up until that late goal. But as I was watching the game, I was like, you know what? This is kind of going the way I thought it might.
Oh yeah.
I thought Seattle might end up pulling one out of their ass somehow. But yeah. Look, I thought Galaxy would make it to Western Conference Finals. I didn't think they'll make it to the finals, but you know, it's time to play the game, like Bob said. Let everybody know where they can find you, Edgar. If they're watching, they're into LA Galaxy. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube right now, if you could do me a favor, just hit that like button. It helps us a ton. And if you haven't already subscribed, and Edgar, let everybody know where they can find you and subscribe to your channel.
Yeah, guys, you can find me at Edgar Nags on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You could also find me with News Across the Galaxy on Twitter and YouTube. We have a show Wednesdays, which is the midweek show, the preview show. We're gonna have it's gonna be Thursday tomorrow with Bob, and Sundays is our recap shows. So thanks to everyone. Hey, Danny, thank you so much for having me on for this journey. If it really does feel like Survivor Island, and it's just the two of us left.
Yeah, because I was doing two different shows for an Eastern and Western Conference because obviously so many teams. And me and Edgar have been doing this so long and over the last month and a half that we were doing this since Game 5 of the Dodgers-Yankee series. We were on here.
We saw that happen live
as that fifth inning was happening.
It's a lifetime
recording
ago.
the Western Conference. So yeah, that's what it feels like. So I appreciate, Edgar, you jumping on over the last month and change. And Bob, let everybody know where they can find you. That's disrespectful.
Hey, listen, I'm not a baseball fan. I actually follow the Atlanta Braves, so you guys can have the series. We'll take MLS Cup. We'll split it right down the middle there. You can find me, my own podcast, The Designated Pundits. You can find us YouTube, thedesignatedpundits.com. Find me any social media, Bob v Soccer. And we wrapped yesterday for the season Bet US Major League Soccer show. It's a great time there with Gareth Wheeler, someone who covers and does commentary for the Canadian soccer team. Dan Alexander, who's a small market bettor. We put together a great season, and I hope you're back there real soon. So that's it. Thank you, thank you for having me. And thanks for being a friend throughout this season. The Battered Hair, I love that. Your scroll talks crap about me every time I'm on here. It's the same guys with the same. At least I wasn't called Timu Big Show this time. That was a plus.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the chat could be. It's fun. It could be a little harsh sometimes. We try to keep the 145 into a minimum. For those of you that watch the Battered Herons, know what the 145 means. And if you haven't already, batteredfans.com, promo code HOHOHO24, 20% off. We got Galaxy gear, we got Red Bulls gear, we got a little bit of everything on there. And it's Miami stuff, plenty MLS, NBA, MLB, all that other stuff. So go ahead and check that out when you get a chance. You get 20% off with HOHOHO24. Thank you guys. Both of you guys, like Edgar called the Survivor. You guys have been hanging out with me for the last month and change. Appreciate you guys. And that's it. And you were talking about this, I believe. Right? Is not this?
Oh yeah. You could do that. Right.
Oh, it ain't working.
Hell yeah, that's cool.
Now I just like an idiot. All right, I guess it ain't working. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, there it goes.
You can also.
Yeah, that one happened
for life, baby.
Yeah. All right. If you're listening on audio, we appreciate you listening all the way to please give us 5 stars, comment, review, all the good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way to please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. And if you are live in the chat, we appreciate you hanging out with us for the last hour and 13 minutes. As always, you guys are the best part of the show. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And we'll be back probably next week to wrap up the season and talk off season. So until the next one, have a good one.